Hello and welcome back. Today, I'm going to experiment with GPU cooling. So I recently watched this Linus Tech Tips video about airflow getting to your GPU. It's a pretty good video if you want to check it out, and they can explain the airflow a lot better than I can. But, to nutshell it, when the front fans are pulling fresh air into a PC case, and the back and top fans are pulling air out, what you imagine happening is that the air being pulled in from the front fans circulates throughout the PC case before being exhausted out the top, right? Well, that's not exactly what's happening. The majority of the fresh air goes up towards the CPU and exhaust fans, and lesser goes towards the GPU. Are you with me? Needless to say, the video piqued my curiosity, and I started paying closer attention to my temps during long gaming sessions. I noticed this temperature gap between the CPU and GPU, with the GPU sometimes spiking upwards of around 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the CPU, which to my knowledge isn't that unusual. The GPU is doing the brunt of the work while gaming after all, and I'm not an expert at temperatures involved with computers, and so what I say and do is only to be taken as my experience. I do have a pretty good understanding of what are acceptable temperatures and what aren't. That being said, I don't have any overheating issues with my computer currently. All I want to accomplish by doing this experiment is just to satisfy my curiosity and find out if by adding another fan could I close that temperature gap a little bit between the CPU and GPU. So the first thing I did was go into Tinkercad and try to design a bracket of sorts that will hold a fan and replace my GPU support. The idea was also to hide the fan at the straight-on view. Since this was just an experiment, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time designing something really in-depth, especially not knowing if it would make a difference in temperatures. So I grabbed a Gears of War cog from the Thingiverse, sized it up to hide the fan, and added a bracket onto it to hold the fan, and a little bracket to support the GPU from sagging. Pretty simple, nothing fancy, took less than 10 minutes to make. Anyway, after printing it, I used these rubber fan mounts to hold it onto the GPU support. Now before I even took the side panel off my computer, I fired up Unigine Heaven so I could see what my temps are without adding an extra fan. I ran this for about a half hour on medium settings, and the temperature of my GPU stayed steadily around 65 to 66 degrees, nothing crazy, but let's add that extra fan and see if anything changes. Some of you may have seen my original ICE GPU support and case decoration, which I've replaced with this smaller version ever since I changed my CPU cooler. I'll leave a link in the description to all of that as well. Anyway, I'll just remove that and put this in its place and plug up the fan. Now I should say the only extra fan I had laying around at the moment is 120 millimeters. However, my GPU support to stop it from sagging is exactly 80 millimeters. So if I had an 80 millimeter fan, I think that would have fit perfectly and I wouldn't have had to make this Gears cog so big. But it is what it is. This is just a test after all. Alright, so after powering it on, you can see the fan is spinning, so we know it's working. There's definitely air moving under the card now where there wasn't as much before. But will it make any kind of difference in temps? Let's jump back on the PC and fire up Heaven and let it run for the same amount of time and see what kind of temps we get. Okay, so overall it's about 3 degrees cooler. It's not exactly the difference I was hoping for, but that's okay, at least I tried and satisfied my curiosity. I still think that if I had an 80 millimeter fan, this might have worked a little better. Would it have been a huge difference? Doubted. But at least it would have looked better anyway. I digress. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you in the next one. And as always, have the best day ever.